Kevin seems to be willing to, he wants to see what you bring, what you show up with, what you do. And then at that point, maybe it's something he hadn't thought of, and so it strikes something in him, or he likes it, or maybe it's something that he doesn't like, and at which point he'll say, why don't you try this, or maybe this, might work better that way. But, he definitely allows you to show up with, having done your work. And he always feels like he knows the characters as well as the actors. But he listens to them, and he respects the amount of work that actors put in trying to become familiar with the person they're playing, intimately familiar.
There's more super monkeys up at that lab. Maybe they're making an army of them up there. Holy shit! Maybe it's a conspiracy like in the X-Files. Roswell style.
He's exactly the same as he was in '95 as he is now, which is a really, really good sign. Because a lot of people change, but Kevin is definitely the same. He likes his movies the way he likes them, and he knows exactly what he wants, and he knew it back then at the age of 24 or 25 as he does now.
I mean, he's sort of known for his wordy dialogue, which, if done right, is a lot of fun to do as an actor. And it takes a specific, you have to deliver it in a specific way. If you take your time with his dialogue, some of the actors would go in and try and take beats and pauses between the lines, and you can't really do that with Kevin's dialogue. It just falls to pieces. You have to just sort of rip through it to make it sound natural, but it's a challenge as an actor.
In the few short years since his entry into the independent film community, Kevin Smith has seen it all. From the surprise critical and commercial success he received for his debut film, Clerks, to the disappointing critical and commercial drubbing he took on his second film, Mallrats. He caught a break on his third film, the critically hailed Chasing Amy, and managed not to get killed by the religious zealots over his fourth film, Dogma. Amazingly, Smith was able to stretch a barely funny concept to its absolute breaking point with the 2001 release of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Smith was born and raised in New Jersey and spent the first 8 years of his education at a Catholic school, then moved on to a public school to complete his first 12 years of education.
Growing up in Jersey, I guess, was probably the thing that shaped the work that I would later do, because all the movies thus far have been about growing up in Jersey to some degree or another. It's an interesting place. I got in trouble once in Time magazine for saying that I grew up in a white trash town. And the people of the town got really upset that I called it a white trash town. And I didn't mean that in an insulting way. I mean, I kind of grew up white trash and accepted the fact that I was white trash. My mother corrected me and said, no, you should have said lower middle class. And I was like, well, there's a big difference between lower middle class and white trash. You know, one eats the free government cheese, the other doesn't. Town was split up into two sections, uptown and downtown. And the uptown people, I mean, largely had more cash, and the downtown people didn't, because we were below sea level, which meant when it flooded, houses got flooded and whatnot. So we lived in, it wasn't low-income housing, but it was, you know, much cheaper than living up on the hill. So all the people who lived on top of the hill used to call the people who lived downtown, you know, white trash and clam diggers and stuff, because it's a fishing industry town. But going to Catholic school as a kid definitely informed Dogma. I mean, Dogma is kind of a 8 years worth of parochial school education, condensed and then surrounded by dick and fart jokes. Sister Teresa, who was my teacher in 8th grade, and Miss Catanzarite, who was my 5th grade teacher, probably the two most important teachers that I had. Miss Catanzarite introduced me to the notion of writing, creative writing. She told me to write a book for this contest, and I did, and I thought that was kind of cool, that a teacher, she was like, you're pretty imaginative, why don't you write a book, you're good with a turn of phrase. So she encouraged me to write, and Sister Teresa also encouraged me to write and act. She had staged, every year the 8th grade would stage this production, like a play. And when it was our year, when we were in 8th grade, we did A Man for All Seasons. But it was kind of a condensed Reader's Digest version, so she just called it St. Thomas More instead. But I mean, it was lifted pretty much from Bolt. Hopefully the Bolt estate doesn't go after Sister Teresa. And that kind of, you know, I mean, I'd always been partial to like getting up on stage and stuff, but that really, you know, kind of clinched the deal for me in terms of performance and mixing the two up, writing and performing. And that's kind of what directing is ultimately. You know, the combination of writing and acting is directing, because you need to know a little bit about acting in order to direct people well. I always find like it fascinating to watch Sidney Pollack act, because he's such a great actor and he's usually better than most people he's directing. And I think that's funny because he is a director. I'm not Sidney Pollack. I'm much worse than most of the people I direct, if not all the people I direct, which is why I don't speak in the movies.
During his brief foray into college, Smith began to write, hoping to someday write for the television show Saturday Night Live, never giving filmmaking a second thought. Eventually, he wound up working at a convenience and video store as a clerk. It was during this time that he saw Richard Linklater's film Slacker, which influenced him to try his hand at filmmaking.
I thought the movie was funny, but the audience around me really thought it was funny. You know, like literally slapping knees and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I mean, it's clever and it's funny, but I don't know if it's this funny. If they think this is funny, I can give them something funny. Like I can make something funnier than this. And that's where I think the arrogance kind of came in that equation. It was me going like, well, if this counts as a movie, I can make a movie, for heaven's sakes.
Once Smith made up his mind that he would become a filmmaker, he knew he had to learn as much as he could before venturing on to a film set of his own. He came across an ad in the Village Voice newspaper for a film school in Vancouver, Canada. The school offered a quick 8-month film course, and that suited Smith's ambitious plans just fine.
I go to Vancouver, and you know, with my theory of any chimp can direct. So I go to Vancouver, and that's where I meet Scott Mosier, who'd become my producer, and David Klein, who shot our first 3 flicks.
He was only there for 4 months because he left after the first half to save the rest of his tuition to put towards Clerks, our first movie. And I stayed the whole time, but in that 4 months we became friends, and he had told me about his idea for Clerks, which at that time I think was called Inconvenience.
Some guy just came in refusing to pay late fees. Said the store was closed for 2 hours yesterday. Tore up his membership.
Shocking abuse of authority.
Hey, I'm a firm believer in the philosophy of a ruling class, especially since I rule.
Miramax Films released Smith's first film, Clerks, in 1994. The movie centered on the life of 2 nowhere-bound convenience and video store clerks and 2 eccentric drug dealers, the now famous Jay and Silent Bob, who constantly hang out outside the stores. Surprisingly, the film became a bona fide hit. At the Cannes Film Festival, Clerks won the Award of Youth as well as the Mercedes-Benz Award.
And we set about shooting Clerks, and I remember we had to get a bunch of film from Kodak. And, you know, they gave a 15% student discount, you know, if you went to film school. And that, of course, was essential because we, you know, doing it on credit cards. So we ordered a bunch of film, a bunch of black and white stock to roll through our Arri SR2, and that we had also rented. And the guy gives us a bunch of, slaps all our film up on the counter at Kodak. And he goes, I just need a student ID. And I was like, you know, I don't have mine. Moj, where's your student ID? He's like, well, I think I left my school ID downstairs in my school bag. And the dude really smelled us for what we were, which was, you know, liars, and pulled the film away. And so rather than being beaten, we went down to the New School for Social Research and looked through the catalog and tried to find a course that we could sign up for so we could get a student ID like that. And there were 2 courses. One was Roasting Suckling Pig, and the other was Understanding Your Homosexuality. So, of course, we went for the Understanding Your Homosexuality course. And and got a student ID. You know, quickly signed up. You know, $50, $75 for the course. Went next door, got an ID. Went back up to Kodak, slapped the ID down. You know, the dude had to give us the film, and looking at us like, fuck, beaten by these two bastards.
You're spending what? 20, maybe $30 a week on your cigarettes?
Yeah.
40. 53. $53 a week on cigarettes. Come on, would you give somebody that much money each week to kill you? Because that's what you're doing now by paying for this so-called privilege to smoke.
Hey, man, we gotta croak sometime.
It's that kind of mentality that allows the cancer-producing industry to thrive.
Yeah, right.
Of course we're all gonna die someday.
Yeah.
Do we have to pay for it?
No.
Do we have to actually throw hard-earned dollars down on the counter and say, please, Mr. Merchant of Death, sir, please, sell me something that'll stink up my breath and my clothes and fry my lungs? No, wait a second. Yeah.
Based on something I'd read that Robert Rodriguez had said in an interview, he's like, you know, if you're going to make an independent film, take stock of what you have and write a script around it. When he was doing El Mariachi, he's like, I knew I had access to this town. You know, I knew I had a guitar case, a guitar, and a turtle, and a bus. And he's like, so I just wrote all that into the script. So when I was writing Clerks, I was like, well, I know I could shoot in this convenience store, you know, because I asked and they said yes. I know I could shoot in the video store, and if I could just keep it here, it'd be pretty easy to shoot. And we never put together a budget, but we always figured, you know, if it ever hit $25,000, we'd worry. Like 25 seemed like a good idea for a budget. Because Robert had done El Mariachi for $7,000, but he didn't really do a finished film. $7,000 got him his film in the can, and then he edited on video. But we were going to go and make a 16mm print, and so that was going to at least be another 10 G's to make a print. So I'd written it, you know, based around the convenience store, very simple. Didn't have a budget. We used an article that we'd read in Filmmaker magazine that Peter Broderick had written, where he talked to a few filmmakers. One was Laws of Gravity, Nick Gomez, and his budget I think was 23 to 25, somewhere in that range. And we started making the movie.
I'm stuck in this pit, working for less than slave wages, working on my day off. The goddamn steel shutters are closed. I deal with every backward-ass fuck on the planet. I smell like shoe polish. My ex-girlfriend is catatonic after fucking a dead guy, and my present girlfriend has sucked 36 dicks.
37.
My life's in the shitter right now, and if you don't mind, I'd like to stew a bit.
Jay was always meant to be played by Jason Mewes, because I'd written that part for Jason Mewes. But Jason, I remember when I handed him the script, you know, was a little nervous about it. I mean, Jason Mewes is the kind of dude, you know him for 2 minutes, he'll whip his dick out. He's that guy, you know, where you're just like, that's enough, that's a little too friendly. But he's very comfortable around people, and he's the guy that drops his pants in public, and he's a total clown at that point. He was a kid, he was like 18, 19 or something. So the character of Jay is written to Jay's inflections, and to the way he speaks, and the things he says. And I hand him the script, and I'm like, what do you think? He's like, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, it's you. How can you not do it? It's just you playing you. So I spent a month teaching Jay how to be Jay, which was a really interesting process, because he'd be like, Snoogans? Why would I say that? I was like, I don't know. Why do you say that? He's like, I don't know. If I'd always wanted to play Randall, that's why he's got the best jokes, you know? I wrote him that way. But as we got closer to production, I was like, I can't memorize all this dialogue and work at the store, because I still work in the store, and direct the movie and post them. I mean, it's just too much. But I at least wanted to be in it, so I looked for a character that was open, and the character of Silent Bob, I was intending to put a friend of mine from school, Mike Bellicose, in it. But I said, fuck Mike, I'm going to do it, because if this is the only movie we're going to make, I at least want to be in it, so that years from now, you know, when I'm still paying off my ridiculously large credit card bill, I can pop it in. Anytime I ever got a notion to direct another movie, I'd pop in the movie to see my greatest blunder, and then be like, oh yes, you know, there's me. What an idiot. That in retrospect, it is astounding that we were able to make a movie. You know, that it was, at the end of the day, it was a movie. There was a guy who, you know, a year later, when we finally did Unspool at the IFFM, 2 years later, before the movie actually came out, it was picked up by Miramax, and people knew what the movie was, and it was a big hit or whatever, indie hit. We were screening at the IFFM, there's a dude coming out of the theater who said, well, best thing I could say about that movie is they got it done. And it's true. You know, at the time I was really insulted, but it really is kind of true. You know, people have really lauded the movie and heaped praise on it and shit like that, and you know, we definitely got overpraised on that movie. But I mean, at the end of the day, that was the kind of most impressive thing, that there were three dudes who had barely any knowledge on cinema or how to put together a film or directing, you know, or producing or shooting, complete fucking amateurs, were able to pull together a movie that still holds up to this day. It was a real blessed accident, you know, of three guys failing upwards every day for 21 days straight.
It was the only time, and probably the only time we'll ever work without there being any expectation of what the outcome will be. There was no studio, there was no budget concerns, there was no schedule concerns, there were no unions, there were no overtimes and meal penalties and all the rest of that stuff. It was just, we were on our own schedule and our own clock and just trying to make ourselves laugh. And so, I mean, it's an experience we'll probably never have again, but it was the most fun for me.
Clerks was screened at the Sundance Film Festival, where it won the Filmmakers Trophy, as well as being nominated for the Grand Jury Prize. It was at Sundance that Miramax head Harvey Weinstein saw the film for the second time. During the first screening in New York, Weinstein, shaking his head, had walked out after the first 10 minutes. A Miramax employee who had seen the film convinced Weinstein to sit through the entire film at Sundance, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So they bought the movie for $227,000. $27,000 was the budget of the movie, $27,575. Then he gave us another $200, $100 of which was going to be used to blow the movie up to 35 millimeter. And then the other $100 was kind of for us, you know, it was kind of the profit, I guess, or whatever.
Kitty, 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 kitty,
Hey,
kitty,
Jay!
Brody, man, noochies. And look at this shit, the mad fat chick killer.
The 1995 release of Mallrats was Smith's follow-up to Clerks. The film featured Jason Lee, Shannon Doherty, Claire Forlani, Ben Affleck, Jason Mewes, Joey Lauren Adams, and Smith as Silent Bob. Filmed on a $6 million budget, the movie promptly fell flat with both critics and moviegoers and proved to be a major blow to Smith.
We didn't want to make it a Miramax because we didn't feel it was a Miramax movie. Like, it didn't have the quality that it took to be a Miramax movie, Mallrats. We thought, you know, it was going to be a very lowbrow fucking teenage titty movie, like the ones we grew up on, like the movies of John Landis or John Hughes, you know, or the Porky's. Jim kept referring to it as a smart Porky's, which was a bizarre way to refer to that movie.
You got bent out of shape the same way over that costume party when we were in high school?
You fucked Rick Darris on a pool table, with everyone watching, no less.
It was a costume party, T.S. No one could tell it was me. Besides, who else but you remembers shit like that?
I would have been a sexy chick.
Brody, do you remember that costume party?
Might that have been the one where you banged Rick Darris on the pool table?
I had played a sort of similar bad guy character and a sort of similar indie director come Hollywood movie in Dazed and Confused, so I didn't really want to repeat that. I wasn't too interested in doing that, but my mother actually loved Clerks so much that when I told her Kevin Smith, she said, oh, you have to, you know, go meet this guy, you have to go see this movie, and so I grudgingly rented Clerks, because I figured if my mom liked it, you know, what could it possibly have to recommend it? And of course it turned out to be, I thought, really smart and funny and interesting. And so I went in and did the audition and met Kevin and was cast in Mallrats. And, you know, he didn't talk very much initially, so I didn't get a chance to know him all that well. We went up to Minnesota to shoot it.
Look, if you don't stop gawking at me and get the hell out of here, I'm gonna kick your ass, okay?
Hey, haven't you ever heard the phrase, the customer's always right?
Let me tell you something. Give you a little secret, okay? The customer's always an asshole.
I went in and read and didn't get the part, and had sort of been promised I would be in the film. So I was really upset. And then they had the final callbacks. They couldn't find a Gwen, so they called me and asked me to come back. And again, they didn't even just offer me the part. They wanted me to come and read again. So I reluctantly did, and got the part.
I was so nervous at the audition that I didn't even have much time to pay attention to who he was and how he was. I was more trying to side with the producer so that I could get in somehow, because I really wanted to be in it, but I didn't really know how it worked, so I figured just pull the producer aside and ask him questions, very naively. But he was pretty surprised by that. So he would answer them, oh, well, he likes this, and you should do it more like this. And So I'd bring that into the room next time I'd go in and read. I think I read probably, I don't know, 9 or so times over the course of a couple weeks. It was pretty brutal.
It was interesting. It was such a young set and such a young vibe, and it was really different. I was always used to being this, you know, the film business is a very serious adult environment, and this was a much looser, freer environment, and I felt like I was among my peers in a way for the first time working on a movie, and that was really exciting.
Fill this with Coke, no ice. Want a sip of my soda?
Oh! Smart-ass ex-boyfriend. I got 2 things to tell you. One, I don't like you. I see you every week in this mall. I don't like shiftless layabouts. You're one of these loser fucking mall rat kids. You don't come down here to work or shop. You hang out all day. Act like you fucking live here.
Came out and bombed. You know, didn't bomb, you know, as bad as some movies bomb. $6 million budget, and the movie made total 2.1, 2.2, I think 2.1. So, you know, we were crushed. That was weird.
You have to remember that at the time it was devastating. I mean, really, I don't think his phone was ringing that weekend. It was a big embarrassment, a terrible disappointment to Kevin. He wanted to do a comedy. I think time proved that the movie was funny and worked, but at the time, nobody knew what to make of it.
I remember getting the call from Jim Jacks on Saturday morning after the Friday grosses. And he's like, well, I got the grosses for Friday night. We'd only play it on 800 screens. It wasn't a massive release. But the marketing campaign wasn't very good. But he said, I got the gross, and we were like, what is it? And he's like, 400 grand. We're like, which theater? And he was like, that would be all the theaters. So I was like, 400 grand? That's not good. So the movie made like 1 point something that weekend, and then went on to make 2.1 total. You know, Kenny Turan gave Clerks such a huge review in the LA Times, and then in the LA Times when he reviewed Mallrats, he said his review started with, if the Sundance or the AFI ever offers a program or course on what not to do as a second feature, Mallrats should be at the heart of the curriculum. And then went on to pretty much shred me for making the movie. The tone was like, how dare you make this movie? We put you where you are, and this is the kind of shit you're gonna do. So we'd been written off at that point pretty hardcore. And it made for a really great place to make the third movie from. And the third movie was Chasing Amy.
How was your pseudo date?
Leave it alone.
The chick bugs me.
No, everyone bugs you.
Get off! Fucking faggot, man. Did you see that? Your dyke courting ass just got me scored on.
You know, you should watch that, man. If you're gonna get so bent out of shape while playing the game, so much so that you feel the need to curse the TV, try not to gay bash it, all right? You're not that kind of guy. And don't call her a dyke. She's a lesbian. Okay?
Chasing Amy was released in 1997 and reteamed Smith with Ben Affleck, Joey Lauren Adams, Jason Lee, Jason Mewes, and again with Smith in the role of Silent Bob. This time, on a fraction of the budget of his previous film, Chasing Amy became an unqualified hit. The film won an Independent Spirit Award, as well as the second place award from the Boston Society of Film Critics.
I remember taking the script into Miramax and saying, this is what we want to do next, and we want to do it with Joey Adams and Ben Affleck and Jason Lee. So handed in the script with a $3 million budget with Ben and Joey and Jason, you know, attached to as the leads. These are the people I wanted. These are the people I wrote the parts for. And exec at Miramax was just like, no. You know, we were thinking more like David Schwimmer, Jon Stewart, and Drew Barrymore. Those are the 3 people they had these kind of deals set up with at the time. And I was like, I don't want to make it with those cats at all. I wrote it for Joey, Jason, and Ben.
Kevin thought that I could play a leading man, whereas no one else had cast me as that. And people, in fact, had told him the contrary. He's too big, he doesn't look right, he's not leading man type, he should be the heavy or whatever.
Hanging out with Ben post Mallrats, I really got to know him, and I was just like, oh my God, this dude you should be a leading man, dude. Like, you're funny, you're witty, you're smart, and you're good looking, and you're tall. You should be a leading man.
So it meant a great deal to me to pick up the phone and have Kevin say, I'm writing a script for you, you're the lead. It's called Chasing Amy, I'll send you the first 40 pages.
And the exec at Miramax said something that was so funny, and I've you know, worked the rest of my career to disprove it. Always remember it. She said, Kevin, it's not about making a movie with your friends. And I was like, but why not? You know, why can't it be about making a movie with friends? Because then it just doesn't feel like work at all. Then you're just goofing off and having a good time and actually getting something done in the process.
Miramax said, well, if you want to cast these unknowns, which was Kevin's girlfriend at the time, Joey Lauren Adams, and I, and me, you know, you have to do the movie for, you know, nothing. I think they wanted some more established stars they had to, you know, deal with, which is not uncut. They just didn't know who we were, you know.
Kevin wrote that with all three of us in mind, and wrote it because he wanted to see us in bigger roles and thought we could do it. So it was, I think we all had a lot of confidence going into it.
So we met with Harvey, and Harvey's like, Kevin, I can't give you $3 million to make a movie with the people you're talking about. And I said, all right, well, how about this? You give us 200 grand, we go off and make the movie we want to make, and bring it back, and if you want it, you buy it. And if not, we get to take it elsewhere. And he goes, I'll give you 250 grand. And I was like, done. And I called up Mosier and said, we got the budget. Harvey said yes, and he goes, great, man, how much? And I was like, $250,000, and you could hear Mosier pass out on the other side of the phone, you know? I mean, we had made a movie for $27,000, but we had just made a movie for $6 million, and Mosier was just like, I don't know if I could pull off a $250,000 movie, man, at this point. And that's the beauty of Mosier. Mosier is a true genius when it comes to getting the movie put together, and he's really kind of the unsung hero, you know? I'm just the guy who's like, I got this idea for a movie where these fucking two dudes run around the mall with their hands down their pants. Wow. You know, and Mosier's job is then to make it happen.
I like you, Hogan. I haven't liked a man in a long time. And it's not because I'm a man hater or something like that. It's just been some time since I've been exposed to a man that didn't immediately live into a stereotype of some sort. And I want you to feel comfortable with me because I'd really like us to be friends. So if there's anything you want to know, it's okay to ask me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Why girls?
Why men?
Jason Lee had also done Drawing Flies after Mallrats, and he had a slightly more dramatic turn in that movie that I thought was really interesting, that we didn't see from him in Mallrats because it didn't call for it. So I wrote the part of Banky for him, and he was a little far edgier than he was in Mallrats.
I was sort of acting in Chasing Amy the way I was acting in Mallrats, and Kevin pulled me aside one day and he said, well, this is a little bit more serious here, and I didn't quite get that at first. I was still very naive at the time, and I didn't understand how it worked altogether. I just thought, well, I have funny dialogue, so be funny and follow his direction. And he said, there's a real moment happening here, you should try to find that. And I didn't quite understand what he meant by that, find that moment. So I tried, and it seemed to work, and he was really impressed with that. And that's when I knew it was something different and that I would have to kind of open myself up to that more in the future, especially when, you know, when working with other directors and with more dramatic material.
Banky, I know why you're having such a hard time with me and Alyssa. It's something that's been obvious forever, and I guess I just didn't acknowledge it. You're in love with me.
What?
You're attracted to me. Just as, in a way, I guess I'm attracted to you. I mean, it makes sense. We've been together so long. We have so much in common.
Oh, I gotta get going. We gotta catch the last few minutes of Little House.
It's something you're gonna have to deal with, Bank. And that would explain your jealousy of Alyssa, your homophobia, your sense of humor.
Jesus, just because a guy's got a predilection toward dick jokes.
Bank, stop. Deal with it. You'll feel much better.
Chasing Amy was just kind of this really nice place to make a movie from, where it was really about making a movie with friends. And Bob Weinstein, Harvey's brother, runs Dimension and also runs Miramax with Harvey, had a great idea. He saw this open window in the release schedule. He's like, let's put it out on 500 screens this date. We'll just, boom, put it out there. And he did, and it made like $5 million that weekend, so the movie was a hit, you know. It cost $250 grand, made $12 million.
He did, I think, a magnificent job with that movie. It really was unusual and different and brave and heartfelt, and it had a heart. And it was Kevin kind of discovering that he could make movies with soul and heart to them. And it was Kevin exposing himself as the sentimentalist that he really is.
Why are we stopping?
Because I can't take this.
Can't take what?
I love you.
You love me.
I love you. And not in a friendly way. Although I think we're great friends. And not in a misplaced affection, puppy dog way. Although I'm sure that's what you'll call it. I love you. Very, very simple. Very truly. You are the epitome of everything I have ever looked for in another human being. And I know that you think of me as just a friend, and crossing that line is the furthest thing from an option you would ever consider, but I had to say it.
When he writes, his scripts are very particular. So once it's on the page, you are pretty much understand what the movie's going to be and what his vision for the movie is. Some scripts aren't that way. Some scripts, there's a lot of interpretation involved. But with Kevin, he writes a script. There's usually a lot of dialogue. His films are dialogue-driven. So you do understand this is the movie and this is pretty much what you're going to get.
My two favorite parts of the filmmaking process are writing and editing. Because with the exception of Mallrats, Mosier and I have edited all the movies. And I like editing because it's very similar to writing. It's like doing another draft of the script. And both processes are very similar in as much as it comes down to one guy in a room. And generally when I write, it's just kind of stream of consciousness. You know, it's just, I don't use note cards, I don't break it down and put shit up on a pegboard, I just write.
He just finished a movie in what seemed like days, but was probably like 2 weeks or something, where he just sort of becomes obsessed with his ideas and will lock himself in his office and just write through the day and through the night, which I'm completely impressed by. He just becomes incredibly focused and has something clearly formulated in his mind when he goes in.
One of the interesting things about Kevin's movies is that when they really work best, they have a sort of improvisational feel, although they're very tightly scripted. I mean, it took me 2 or 3 movies to be able to sneak in a line or two.
Ben Affleck always jokes because he tries to throw in little things here and there, but Kevin always stops him very abruptly. I think he let Chris Rock improvise a little bit on Dogma, because Chris Rock is Chris Rock and, of course, can do that well. But none of us can improvise, really, because we've all been trained not to by Kevin. So on other movies, I have a hard time. I feel like I'll get in trouble if I try to improvise.
Holy Mother Church has decided to retire this highly recognizable, yet wholly depressing image of our Lord crucified. Christ didn't come to earth to give us the willies. He came to help us out. He was a booster. And it's with that take on our Lord in mind that we've come up with a new, more inspiring sigil. So it is with great pleasure that I present you with the first of many revamps the Catholicism Wow campaign will unveil over the next year. I give you the Buddy Christ.
Who would have thought that the 1999 release of Dogma would have created such an uproar? But it did, because of its hilarious examination of 2 fallen angels who, laid off by God and exiled for all eternity, schemed to regain their status and re-enter heaven. The cast featured Ben Affleck and Matt Damon as the fallen angels, with a supporting cast that included Linda Fiorentino, Alan Rickman, Salma Hayek, Chris Rock, Jason Lee, Jason Mewes, George Carlin, Bud Cort, Kevin Smith as Silent Bob, and singer Alanis Morissette as God. The film was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, a Los Angeles Critics Association Award, and the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America Award.
When I read Dogma, I was so thoroughly confused. What the hell is this? You know, the script was this thick, and it was full of thousands of characters, or so it seemed, and I don't understand any of what I'm reading, so I've got this dictionary handy, and I'm asking Kevin dozens of questions every day when we were on location.
I was excited to play God because I think everybody and everything is God. I think we're all manifestations of God, so I thought, why not play one of the billions of manifestations of God? Go for it.
He told me that he was a big fan of the comedy I had done for quite a long time, and he was younger and he'd grown up with some of it. And because of that, he said he wrote this part with me in mind, partly because of my kind of outspoken stuff about religion that I do, and secondly, just because he thought I could do it well, and he wrote it in, sort of in my voice. And my reaction was, yeah, I'd love to do this guy, and I'd love to be in this movie. Any opportunity I get to ridicule religion or people who are involved with it, I just have to do it.
With a papal sanction, the archway entrance of the century-old Jersey Shore house of worship will serve as a passageway of plenary indulgence, a little-known Catholic belief which offers all that passes through its arches a morally clean slate. For Sunday News Brief, I'm Grant Hicks.
I likened it to Pulp Fiction, you know, where it was like showing an audience that you could really approach movies in a different way. You could tell stories differently. You could take on these weighty subjects and do them in a way that had some currency in kind of pop culture.
I am the Metatron. Don't tell me the name doesn't ring a bell.
I was just blown away by it. It was a kind of script I thought, God, I wish I had written that, you know.
By walking through the archway, all your sins are forgiven. Then all we have to do is die.
Die? I don't want to die.
What, you'd rather hang around here for a few more
No,
years?
we don't even know if we can die. All right, but what if we can, and then the arch thing doesn't work? What then? Hell?
Fuck that. It's impossible.
Fuck that.
If we cut off our wings and transubstantiate to complete human form, we become mortal. If we die with clean souls, there's no way they can keep us out. We won't be angels anymore, but at least we get to go home. Who sent the paper? Who cares who sent the paper? All that matters is that after all these years, we found a loophole. He can't keep us out anymore.
When the movie was done and we were, you know, mixing it and editing and whatnot, this brouhaha broke out when the Catholic League went after the movie. This guy named Bill Donahue runs the Catholic League and started charging the movie with being insanely anti-Catholic and charging Harvey and Bob Weinstein with being anti-Catholic yet again. He said they had done it on this movie Priest that they put out a few years prior.
The apologists for religion in general, in this case the Catholic religion, you just knew they'd be out in force, and they would, I just didn't, I didn't know the degree it might be, and it was nice. I like that. I think that's what art should do. It should provoke, and comedy should do the same thing. You find out where the line is, and you cross it. That's the duty. And you try to drag your audience across that line and have them enjoy the trip.
In some ways, it was a very pro-religious movie. I think most of the people who protested that were more interested in seeing their own name in the papers than really held any grudge against the movie. Probably, if anything, it helped it a little bit. You know, ultimately, that controversy has really sort of, I don't think it's held up over time. I feel like, I mean, you really have to not be able to, you really have to have no sense of humor to genuinely be offended by dogma. I mean, you know, please.
See, in the beginning, it was just us and him, angels and God. Then he created humans. Ours was designed to be a life of servitude and worship and bowing and scraping and adoration. He gave them more than he ever gave us. He gave them a choice. They choose to acknowledge God or choose to ignore him. All this time we've been down here, I've felt the absence of the divine presence, and it's pained me, as I'm sure it must have pained you. And why? Because of the way he made us. Had we been given free will, we could choose to ignore the pain like they do. But no, we're servants.
The funny thing is, when we were making the movie, we didn't really think we were making a controversial movie at all. In fact, I thought I was going to be lambasted by the press, who felt that the movie was far too, you know, reverent. Because it is a really pro-faith movie. You know, it's not so pro-church, but it's there's actually hope in it for the church. You know, it's a movie that kind of asks the church to kind of drag itself into the 20th, 21st century.
I mean, it was understandable why certain people got upset, but at the same time, it was a 100% pure promotion of spirituality and the belief in a supreme being or God. And you kind of get from the movie that, if you really pay attention to it, and you get that lots of things in the middle can confuse the simplicity of belief in spirituality and in God. And I think that's what it was.
You know, it caused a really bad ruckus. A really bad year. It was a horrible year, actually. We got 50 to 100,000 pieces of hate mail. 3 of them were death threats, hardcore death threats. For a while in our office, we weren't allowed to open or receive our mail or open it. Somebody else had to do it. Check for bombs and shit like that.
Soon a cadre of police will arrive just in time to kill us as we exit the church. And then this failed experiment called existence will cease to be.
No, hey! No. I can't let you do that, Bartleby. This has gone too far. I might have to take you down.
It's okay.
I'll do it.
Like a patriot. Genocide takes a lot out of him. He's weakened.
You're weak.
More importantly, he's also a human being. A condition which carries two liabilities. Conscience and, short lifespan. I'm sorry, old friend, but you lost the faith.
He never made excuses for the content and you know, stood by the movie and stood by the idea that it was a love letter to God and that he couldn't believe that people were taking a movie with a rubber poop monster in it quite as seriously as they were.
Movie came out, and all the press was just like very supportive press. People reviewed the movie really well. But a lot of the press was like, there's nothing sacrilegious in this movie. So all the controversy that had dogged us for the better part of a year went away the moment the movie came out. Because people could see it and just be like, well, where's all the, I thought this movie flipped the bird at the church for 2 hours. It doesn't do that at all. It's actually very churchy. During that time, you know, my wife and I were having our child, and the weekend that the baby got christened was the weekend that the movie opened. And somebody put a rock through our window at the house, which was as close to home as it got. And that's when I was just like, I think I'm done talking about religion for a little while.
Oh, Bartleby. Was Wisconsin really that bad?
Bow down, stupid!
I guess if you guys really wanted to hang out in front of a convenience store, you could just buy your own now. What, with all that money you guys made?
Hell yeah, bitch. Wait a sec, what money?
The money from the Blunt Man and Chronic movie? Oh my God, don't tell me you have no idea there's a movie being made of the comic you two were the basis for? What?
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was released in 2001 and gathered just about every actor who had ever appeared in a Smith film, plus a number of new ones. Jay and Silent Bob, learning that a film is being made about their lives without their involvement, set out to wreck the movie. Its slapstick approach was just short of a Marx Brothers comedy.
Kevin would probably take that as a compliment, yes, because Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is actually very silly. You know, and even the music and Will Ferrell. Yeah, I love that movie. I thought it was really, I don't know. I haven't really thought much about it. I just think it's kind of goofy.
It kind of came from a place of, after putting up with a year of the dogma bullshit, just wanted to make a movie that didn't really offend anybody, or not offend anybody like to their spiritual core. You know, if it offended people, it offended people with good taste, you know, just by virtue of the fact that it was a tacky little movie. So, yeah, it was kind of the, in many weird ways, maybe the most personal movie I ever made, even though it's the most, like, ridiculous and kind of broad and very farcical and very pants-droppingest movie we've ever made. You know, the humor was certainly not well earned in many places. I always felt like in our other flicks, you know, it's like we earned the laughs by virtue of the fact that what was being said was getting the laughs, you know, the humor through dialogue. This movie was barely that, you know. It's like people falling down and shit like that, real slapsticky.
Excuse me, who the hell are you?
Federal Wildlife Marshal, this investigation is now under my jurisdiction.
Oh, really? And why's that?
Because someone let a whole mess of animals out of their cages, sir.
Well, we believe that was just a diversionary tactic used to call attention away from the real heist over here at the Diamond Exchange.
Yeah, right. That's a believable scenario. Sounds more like something out of a bad movie.
I actually kind of felt left out of that project a little bit because I had done Mallrats when I was 24 and Kevin was 24 and now I'm coming back to do 2 cameos, the character from Mallrats and the character from Chasing Amy, and it's all these new young actors, you know? And I was kind of like the old Kevin Smith veteran, just kind of waiting, hi, to do my one little scene here and there.
Look at all these crackers. $70 million, I can't even get a black grip. That's a shame. It's a damn shame.
Here's your coffee, sir.
You spitting this?
I didn't spit it, sir.
Any boogers in it?
There's no boogers in it, sir.
You went to film school, didn't you? Must piss you off to see a black man running a big old production like this, huh? Went to film school. Does your daddy know that you give a nigga his coffee? It would kill him, wouldn't it?
There's no boogers in it, sir.
Then taste it. Taste it. Taste the booger flavor. I know it's in there.
It's all good, sir.
No, it ain't all good. Now clean that shit up. That's right. Get me a white boy. Get me a blonde-haired white boy so I can enjoy that shit.
You the man, sir.
No, you the man, and that's the problem.
We were feeling particularly guilty also because we forgot to thank Kevin at the Academy Awards, which I'll never, ever, ever stop regretting. Kevin was the reason Good Will Hunting got made. He's the only reason it got to Miramax. He was the champion there. Otherwise, that movie never would have happened without Kevin Smith. So it sort of broke our hearts that we didn't thank him. It was during Dogma, and you can imagine our embarrassment when we came back. But you know, Jay and Silent Bob was like, I love Kevin, and he had to do satiring Hollywood. I thought it was brilliant. You know, Good Will Hunting 2, Hunting Season. I just thought it was a brilliant idea, and it was a really wonderful, fun thing to do, and it wasn't payback at all. I mean, I would have done that in a second, you know. Although I feel like my life, I don't know that I'll ever feel able to repay the debt that I feel I owe Kevin, because there's some enormous power in believing in somebody when nobody else does, and you know, you never forget that, and I never will. And you know, it's when you're down and out, you find out who your friends are, and Kevin Smith is a friend of mine, and I can't entirely understand why. I don't know that I deserve such a great friend, but he has been one, and he's you know, I'd do anything for the guy. I love him to death.
What, you're the director now?
Hey, shove it, bounce boy. Let's remember who talked you into doing this shit in the first place. I mean, talking me into Dogma is one thing.
Look, you know, I'm sorry I dragged you away from whatever gay serial killers who ride horses and like to play golf touchy-feely picture you're gonna do this week.
I take it you haven't seen Forces of Nature.
You're like a child. What do I keep telling you? You gotta do the safe picture, then you do the art picture. And then sometimes you gotta do the payback picture because your friend says you owe him. Right before the movie came out, we got slammed by GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian, and you know, the Gay and Lesbian Organization. I forget what the acronym stands for. Who's Scott Sioman, who was their media spokesman, saw the movie and decided that it was anti-gay, was hateful toward the gay community. It was really irritating to me because I made Chasing Amy, which was about the most gay-friendly picture on the planet, outside of one made by a gay filmmaker. And you know, I work in Hollywood, man. I'm surrounded by gay people. You know, some of my best friends are gay. My brother's gay, and he's married to a man. Like I'm not anti-gay at all. I'm real pro-gay, real happy. You know, happy that others are gay. It's not for me. It's fine. But being slammed as being anti-gay was kind of like, it was counterproductive to every reason why we wanted to make the movie. We're like, let's just make the movie, and it'll offend nobody. It ain't gonna be like Dogma. And somehow wound up offending somebody. So it was weird. Clerks, we had the MPA controversy. Chasing Amy, we got a little bit of a protest from the lesbian community going like, oh, this movie just, you know, extols and holds up that old chestnut that all any lesbian really needs is one good guy to turn around, which that was not what the movie was about. And we had one character express that, so it could be debunked in the movie. So we got a little bit of outcry on that. Dogma, we got a shitload of outcry on. And Jay and Silent Bob, right before it came out, we got some outcry. So it was weird, just dogged by controversy and nothing that we ever courted, you know?
For a guy who's very fucking boring and leads a very boring life, and I don't party and I don't drink and I don't do drugs, and I spend a lot of time indoors watching TV, now playing with my kid or playing with my wife, controversy really seems to find us in the stuff we do. It's weird, man. It's very, very weird. And there are people out there, there are other filmmakers who are kind of iconoclasts on purpose. You know, people that kind of do wacky things.
Smith went to work on Jersey Girl, a 1990s dramatic comedy about a guy named Ollie Trinky and the effects a new wife and 6-year-old daughter have on his seemingly already full life. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez starred, ably supported by Liv Tyler, Raquel Castro, and George Carlin, with cameo appearances by old friends Jason Lee and Matt Damon.
And we keep calling it our adult movie, but people are like, wait, you made a porn? And we're, well, no, not that kind of adult movie. It's just a little more grown up. It's closer in tone to Chasing Amy in terms of its comedy and a drama as well. A little shy on the dick and fart jokes. But you know, it kind of comes from a place where I am in my life. I've always really enjoyed that the movies were snapshots of particular moments in my life. And this one is the kind of snapshot of me as a married guy with a kid, because that's what the movie's about.
I think Jersey Girl is definitely his most mainstream movie. I think the movie's just without a lot of swear words and sex talk that have kind of peppered his other movies, but have never been what they were about at their root. They were about people trying to find their way through life. And this doesn't have some of those things which are kind of hot buttons and distract people sometimes. It's just in some ways it's a more traditional movie, I suppose, but you would never mistake it for anybody else. So it's an interesting kind of convergence between Kevin's sensibilities and mainstream classic cinema.
I saw a rough cut of Jersey Girl. I could tell he sort of settled down a little bit. I was genuinely moved, and I think the idea was, wow, this is Kevin Smith. Wow. I mean, who would have thought that it would be this human and intense and real? And I mean, it was Chasing Amy. Those moments with Ben and Joey and Chasing Amy kind of intensified on a big, broad scale. I told Kevin afterwards, this movie has definitely changed something in me, because it makes you realize, you know, it wasn't just the story that kind of made me realize what it made me realize, but it was also that, you know, you can never be set in one way of thinking about a person. They're always going to surprise you, and that's what art does, and that's what real artists do. They always surprise, and that's what he did, and because of that, it really opened something up in me, and I told him that, and so that was a really good experience for me, and we'll see what the audience has to say.
Smith and his producing partner, Scott Mosier, were responsible for getting the Ben Affleck and Matt Damon original screenplay, Good Will Hunting, to Miramax, who produced and released the film, winning Affleck and Damon an Oscar for Best Screenplay. As executive producers of that film, Mosier and Smith received the Humanitas Award. Smith was also one of the first filmmakers to venture into cyberspace, establishing the insanely popular View Askewniverse website in the mid-90s. And if that were not enough, he also opened his own comic book store, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, in downtown Red Bank, New Jersey. For his writing in the comics field, Smith has landed a Harvey Award, a Wizard Fan Award, and an Eagle Award.
I enjoy rehearsing more so than directing, because that's like you and the actors in a room, and that's where you really kind of get to see the movie come to life for the first time. I guess the more people get involved, the less I like it. Not that I don't like directing, I certainly do like it, but I don't know, you just start adding more people into the mix, and I don't know, I'm just kind of a shy person anyway, I guess, so I like being by myself more than anything else, but the fact that you get all the people that work with you on the movie is really an insanely important part of it. That's why I don't direct begrudgingly by any stretch of the imagination. I'm happy to be the guy in charge who has the final say, but I'm more happy to be surrounded by the craftsmen that kind of bring the stuff to life. That's why I've never been one of these cats that takes that a film by credit. You know, don't really believe in that, because it's not a film by Kevin Smith. It's a film by everybody that worked on the movie. Like, I'm happy to take my credits, they're written and directed by, because that's what I did. But to me, it always seems rather exclusionary to take that a film by, because you're taking credit off, away from all these people, the guys that built the sets, people that put, coffee on the table at craft service, the people that wrangle the actors, the AD, who is insanely essential to the whole filmmaking process, the guy that wrote the score, the guy production designer. Everybody, it's collective effort, really, really is. And it starts from one person's idea, but it becomes everybody's movie to a large degree. And the benefit of being the director is you just get the final say in everything, which isn't always even really a benefit. Sometimes a real pain in the ass, because you field a lot of questions. That's what a director essentially does. You field a lot of questions. People come to you and be like, black or white, green or red, or do we want this over here, and it's just you essentially making snap decisions like, okay, that, and you never really know if you're accurate, because it's arbitrary, it's really comes down to one person's opinion.
I think that if you look at Kevin's body of work from beginning to end, you see first a writer. You see someone who emerged as a writer. Truly, his voice as a writer was so strong, and I think that what's interesting is that if you continue to watch the movie, you watch the director grow, and you see that, as it goes along, his voice as a director starts to come through clearer and clearer and clearer. And until the point now where it's like they are one and the same. He is a writer-director, and I think that it's been really amazing to watch that process.
I don't know. I don't believe anything comes free, and I always, it irritates my wife to no end, but I always wait for the other shoe to drop. I got really lucky. What's going to happen? I remember seeing Alan Parker's movie Angel Heart when I was younger, and it was a terrifying film to me because the main character that Mickey Rourke played didn't know that he had sold his soul to the devil until the end of the movie. And I was like, oh my God, how horrible. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I must have sold my soul to Satan to get my career. And part of the deal was that I wouldn't remember until my deathbed, so I didn't have time to repent, and so I'll burn. So I don't know what happens when I'm terrified of dying, of course, because I don't want to find out that I was right and that I got an idea from an Alan Parker movie, and that's kind of set my career in motion. But I also can't really justify why I've had the career I've had in it to begin with. It's weird. I always say that there's no better proof of the existence of God than the fact that I have a career in film. For a guy who's never directed a movie that made more than $30 million, it's shocking how many people know my work or know who I am or something like that. It's like, sitting down to do this, to the director series. It's like, who the fuck is Kevin Smith? But there are enough people out there who know, and that's because our stuff seems to connect with people on this really weird personal level. So hopefully when I'm gone, it still affects people that same way. Hopefully some kid in the year 2034, can pop in Clerks and still kind of identify with it, even if he's not, in possession of a flannel shirt and a backwards baseball cap, that he can still be like, I feel that way. I am that dude who, just is filled with ennui. Don't know what I want to do. Too smart to do this job, but too lazy to do any other job. That'd be good. That'd be all right.